Hello everyone, Brent, Francers 4 here, and welcome back to RB K9. We have updated the deck to a 60 card version that I have been having decent success with, but likely it's going to get changed again as we test it a little bit more. Um, One thing I do want to mention about the second part here is this is essentially a follow up to the last combo video I made where I showcased the deck, the new RB second wave of cards, and going over my build of the K9 version as well as the Makata version. Now, a few reasons why I want to do this update. Firstly, is I have received a few comments, and it's been a pretty well received video. But there was a couple comments that pointed out a couple of issues with the deck. Mainly one guy, I forgot his name his YouTube name, but he pointed out about the Makata version that if you start out with Makata Gear Frame, you cannot out the nib with Cannon because of Unclass effect, which admittedly, I did not even realize it actually had this drawback until I reread the card. So let me get the card up here. Where is it's like up here. Okay, here we go. So here's Unclops. So what this card says, as we know, it's essentially a themed Snake Eye Poplar. It lets you, if you add it to your hand except by drawing, you special it, and then if it's normal special, it lets you send a Makata monster from your deck to grave, which is good. Which is good as a part of your one combo because it sets up Makata Citadel as a Raigeki. Unfortunately, what I did not realize was the one-line attacks when you did summon from the hand by its effect. It says here, also you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except machine monsters. Now, the reason why that's very important here is because if I get out Nibiru here, let's so let's go ahead and test. So let me just show you some things here. All right, so I'll show you quickly here. Now, if I do the combo here, pretty much, let's just go through the sequence line like we normally do before. Or so we're just gonna do on cost effect. All right, and then we'll dump Citadel of the Grave. Summon this card to the field, and then we can use this effect. Then we go ahead and add Funk Dock to hand. Cards. We're now going to go ahead and trigger this effect. This will then add Stage Line from our deck. So again, this is summon number 3. We're then going to go ahead and summon out to our field Cannon, because that's usually what happens. Now, normally here, if you do any other one-card combo that gets to this point in 4 summons, that doesn't machine lock you like Unclass does, you'd be able to hit Nibiru here, but unfortunately, this is what ends up happening if we end up going for this route. If we do this, and because of Unclass's downside, we can only summon machines at all. Now, yes, we do gain hand knowledge, but now what ends up happening here is, if we do this play, now if we go this route, they can now nib us right here. And this really hurts us because if we don't have a machine extender or another stage line to keep playing, our turn pretty much is just over at this point, and there's really not much we can realistically do about that. Now, you do have a few ways to play around this card effect. You do technically have a ways to play around this, though. But that is one thing worth noting. However, if you open redeployment, though, however, you can play around this downside. So, if you have Makata redeployment here, you can actually play around this drawback by, instead of actually adding Unclass, since we don't really want to see it in our hand too often, what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to add these two to the hand. Then you can just dump this to the field. That's a stage line to hand. Then you guys summon a candidate again. This is summon number 4. And now, since we're not machine locked, now we can force them to summon the nib. that, setting up cutter or driller depending on what's in their hand. We can then use the effect of Vulcan Booster to summon back out this card. Not going to use the effect just yet, because now adding operation test. And then we get to add back drill cutter, and then we could special summon the drill cutter. We're gonna do operation test. We're gonna do this right away because we need to keep our life points relatively high. So as a result, we need to summon this back to the field. All right. Now we can do this effect. Dump that to the grave, and then we can add Clockwork Knight to the hand. We'll then pitch Clockwork Knight. And we're going to go ahead and summon out this card. And then this effect will then trigger, which will then set up the counter trap. Now, unfortunately, because I forgot to put in another card, we'll be able to use Clockwork Knight to dump a card and then add, we can then add Therion King Regulus to our opening hand. So that way we at least have an army game. So that combo is practically does not change. The only change you make in that is that instead of adding Unclops, you just add Citadel, and then you just add you add Fortress, and then you add Citadel from Gear Frame, and then you just get the same setup anyway. Or if you have any other high-low machine combined with Fortress, you still get the same result anyway. So as a result from this combo, with just one small adjustment, you still get the same interaction pieces you get from a single redeployment. You still get Citadel Raigeki effect. You still get Shepherd's Crook to add back recursion, so you still get Spell Trap Negate. You get a Book of you get a Mind Control effect, which is 3. You still get Monster Powers 4. Regulus, which is 5, and then, yeah, you still get around 5 pieces of interaction, up to 6. That still is available. But that's just kind of make a couple adjustments. I do think there's a couple ways we could fix that issue, but we're going to showcase the K9 version more, because I want to go over some other changes, though. So before we get to the combos lines and show some matches, I'll go over the updated build. I did put this deck up to 60, and I don't think this will stay at 60, realistically speaking. I'm just trying out other stuff, and it's been decently successful so far. So first off, let's begin. So first off, we have Triple Nibiru. I recently added this card into the deck. I think the card's really great in combination with our deck, because as long as we can set up, record the opponent's resources as low as possible, it doesn't matter if we wipe out our own cards. We condition them to like force a lot of resources, and then Nibiru will just become the nail in the coffin at the end, and then we have Operation Test back as flaw. So as a result, we effectively have decent follow-up even after we nib our own board. Once said though, don't know if this will stay in the deck or not. I have really been using this card as often as I used to, because in most of my end boards, I really never needed Citadel's Raigeki effect, because most of the time I never get the setup for it. And it gets answered by every good relevant graveyard type hate. So Ghost Spell's very good right now, and if she can deny Citadel effects, so Citadel's just a really bad breath to draw. I am debating about likely cutting it from the deck, because I think at this point, I think in the K9 version, I think it's win more. I do think in the pure version, I think it's needed for the build, but for now, it's okay when it does come up, but I'm likely going to be taking it out on my list. Regulus is probably the new change we did. We actually bumped it up to 2 now. The cool thing about this card now is now that we have easier access to this card, we can actually get away with playing 2 to 3 of this now. And I'm likely even debating about maybe taking out Citadel to put in a third one. Because one, obviously the fact it's an Omni Gate, this means by playing more copies, you essentially can get access to the second one as follow-up, which is actually kind of strong. Especially if it's an Omni Gate, it lets you immediately contest any card on the field or in their hand. Which also is great because this makes this card be able to contest, this can contest K9 Azuna, which is very good. Instantly contests it. And it's a machine, so in worst case, if you can't use the Omega, you could just use it extender if necessary. Pod Bunker, Lending Candat, these don't really change at all. Honestly, the RB ratios don't really change too much, with one exception, which we'll get to later. 1 Lupus, Standard, 3 Noroi, really insanely powerful normal summon in this deck. By far the best normal summon in the whole deck. This is easily hands down the best normal summon in the entire deck. It leads it to almost anything you want. you get full K9 setup, you get full RB setup, you get really solid follow-up, and you get so much card advantage, and you'll instantly gain hand knowledge as well as hand rip. So you can immediately adjust your plays around anything the opponent has in their hand. Now, not all decks, though. There are some decks that, even if you know what they have, they can likely play around what you have, even if you set up the perfect scenarios. But they still have to commit a lot of resources, and if you can survive at least one turn with decent follow-up, you can probably kill them on the crackback, which is the main goal of the deck. 3 Azuna is self-explanatory, 3 Choco self-explanatory, 1 Lantern. It's pretty standard. Though. 3 Lantern, 3 Case for Cannon, that's pretty much standard. We took out, what was it called? Release Restraint and put back in Forced Release. I still think Release Restraint is a bit more better than Forced Release in the context that you can play on Target Effect protection better at any point in turn, and Release Restraint can be used in the battle phase to go to Werewolf. However, I think Forced Release is a bit better in the context of this build, because you always know what's in your opponent's hand, and if you time this card correctly, with Werewolf, you not only get to pop a card on the field, but with Werewolf, he gets to look at your opponent's hand. So after you went through their hand the first time, either by Noroi or by Lambda Cannon, you can then use Werewolf to bash whatever's left in their hand, and you can really limit their options, because then they have to use so many resources, and you're probably already got strong follow-up afterwards, even if they outsummer your board. Like, Force Release is, in my opinion, better in this version, but I still think this might be worth playing with Force Release, or we could side deck Force Release and just put back in Release Restraint. I think it's up to personal preference. And, now, let's get to the one big change. We bumped up Vulcan Rocket to 2 copies. The reason why for it is because Vulcan Rocket, by playing 2 of it, if you open Vulcan Rocket plus any other machine monster in your hand, so it could be another RB piece, it can be Scrap a Cycle if you want, or even Jet Synchron, you have not only do you still get full RB setup, you gain an RB combo that bridges into K9, and I'll showcase that combo later, or relatively later. That's why we're bumped this up to 2, because we need a way to bridge into K9 in scenarios where we need that way to play through interaction better. Playing 2 Vulcan Rocket is pretty much mandatory in that regard. 2 color self-explanatory, 3 full self-explanatory. Scrap Cycle was probably one of the bigger changes. We only ran 1 copy of it in the original build, and we bumped it up to 3 as an additional 1-card starter, because it gives us access to Jet Synchron, which Jet Synchron is also starter if we happen to open it, so it's not even a hard brick. We can link these off. We can go to Scrap Cycle dump this. This dumps a brick, and then this comes back, and then we just make Vulcan Booster. However, there is a bunch of other really good dual swords in the deck that you can run, though. I'll get to them later. I'll get to them later in the video, but what Scrap Cycle has definitely been very good in testing. It's a good normal summon, but it does come with some drawbacks, though. So, like, because you're playing Jet Singer as the main target, or if you already have it in your hand, you could just do Citadel, dump that, so you can set up the right get key. It does make some of your combos vulnerable to Azuna, which can be problematic, which is why that I do personally think that, in my personal opinion, there might be better normal summons we can run that don't conflict, that don't turn on Azuna. True Drill, self-explanatory, Ash, self-explanatory, Ghost Stoker. I love Ghost Stoker right now. I think this card's very good right now. It answers some big threats right on the board. It hits powerful continuous spells and field spells right now. But most importantly, it is very powerful into K9 because you can instantly destroy the opposing Lupus when it attempts to Exceed Summon. And you permanently got rid of it, so now you don't have to worry about Quick Effect XYZ summoning on your own turn, so that's a threat out of the way. Jet Singer, as I stated, if you open this card, it's a 1-card starter. It's a 1.5 star into RB, which is still solid. Turbo Booster, again, I know it's a very weird tech, but I kind of like in this version of the deck. It really doesn't come up near as often as I thought it would, because most of the combos I had, though, I always played through multiple interactions, and I didn't really need Turbo Booster, so it's likely not going to stay in the list for very long, but in the combos where you do need it, it's a very good extender, and you have a lot of good normal summons in your deck, so this is always live at least. 2 stage landing. I don't think I'll be playing this back up to 3. I am debating, however, of maybe if I could get a 3rd stage landing, I might take out Citadel for the 3rd copy to increase the number of 1-card starters. Because in that regard, you have this card, and we have 2 Foolish Barragos, which can dump Clockwork Knife, which gives us access to an Earth Machine to start. So technically, it's a 1.5 star into either Scrap Cycle, or we can add Noroi, because Noroi is an Earth Machine. So if we did that, this would be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. This deck effectively would run 17 1-card starters. And if we have Joko plus any level 5 monster, technically it's a 1.5 card combo. So that would bump the deck to around technically 21 1-card starters. Which is a lot though, because that means almost any of those cards can lead to a full setup. And half of them are also extenders, which is also pretty good. 1 Force Release isolated, 3 K-Stat standard. 3 Clockwork Knight's pretty weird. It's very good though, because it's a flood against Yummy. This is a very powerful flood game to Yummy, because they pretty much for the most part can't really do anything under this. This also makes them really weak in more weaker than usual, where that any 2 buys you just special for free will just swing over whatever they play. So you just instantly out their freaking board by just this. And as I stated in my last video, if you main deck or side deck Cyber Dragon with the fusions, this card plus Cyber Dragon, you can out almost any board in the game. You out effectively any board in the entire game. Was really strong 2 machine test. This doesn't change. I do not think 3 is mandatory. I think 3 can be very bricky, but I think 1 and 2 is perfectly fine. 3 Fun Dock. If you're not playing this at 3, you're just throwing. This is mandatory in every combo you do. It's mandatory for floating. 3 Imperm. 1 Next Phase. Now, admittedly about next phase, I'll admit this card's very weird. On one hand, it's a pretty decent trap that's recurable because of Shepherd's Crook. It's monster negate, and it destroys it, which is good. But the conditions required for this card is what makes it very awkward. First of all, you need an RB monster, which is not even that hard to do. But you still need that. And second, you need to destroy a monster you control to do this. And because it says if you do, you cannot play around this card's downside with RB stage landing. Although in most cases, if you get out Lambda Blade, you're just going to take control of one of their best monsters, and then you could pop that one with the next phase. So realistically, it's not like a big downside. Like, the Scout Tribe is actually not that bad, all things considered. But I do personally will admit, for a card that requires us to destroy one of our own monsters, I would have preferred, I think I would have been fine with that downside if this, like, maybe was an Omnigate in general. Because first of all, you have to play this in RB, which is already the main drawback about it. Secondly, because you need to destroy a monster, you can only get monster facts. It's very awkward considering that you already have monster removal in the deck. So it just makes it really weird and awkward at times. But I think it's a decent counter trap though. It's definitely not as good as I thought it was originally, but I think it's a decent counter trap. Extra deck doesn't change too much. We have 2 Clockwork Knight, 2 Vulcan Booster, 2 Shadow Swift, 2 Brute Boost, those are standard. Barricade standard, 2 Ripper standard, if it's Ripper Stormer, Valon, and Jax are standard. A Werewolf was the new addition. We just took out a copy of Brute Boost for it, but it's a very important inboard piece, not only because it hand rips the opponent on their turn, which can disrupt them, but on the crackback, or if we're going first, if we make this out, we could just instantly out their cards on the field, which is also, again, really, really strong because it removes the stuff from the graveyard, so that's very, very important. And yeah, on this effective deck, now there's a couple unique interactions I want to mention here. So I want to mention about Pod Bunker. All the other RBs that can destroy themselves, you cannot use, because of that reason, you cannot use Stage Line with most of them, because if you do that, you don't get to trigger the rest of their effects. So that means, Cutter, you cannot negate Spell Trap if it doesn't destroy itself. Cannon, you cannot look at your opponent's hand if it can't destroy itself. But what makes Pod Bunker, what makes this card really, really unique is that it's worded differently from the others. So if we look at Cutter, it says, destroy this card, and if you do. That means that because it has that line of text, all the other RBs have that line of text. What this means, people, is you have to destroy these cards in order to resolve their main effects. So you cannot play around that downside with Stage Line, which is why it doesn't work with next phase. But Pod Bunker is different because it doesn't have that wording. Instead, its wording is, and I quote, when an attack is declared involving an opponent's monster, and an RB Brew Blues that points to this card, you pay 15 life points. Destroy all cards your opponent controls and this card. Now, why is this important? Because let's take a look at Citadel's text. If it faces up, so here's what it says. You target one machine monster control, destroy both that machine monster and all monsters your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to it. The reason why is that it's worded the same way as Citadel. You do not have to destroy the machine in order to destroy all cards the opponent controls. You just need to destroy the only cost condition to activate is simply for the case of Pop Bunker, it's just pay 15 life points as the cost for it. That's the cost of the card. So what this means is, if you have Brew Blues on the field and you have Pop Bunker, you then activate Pop Bunker's effect, you bash Stage Lightning so this doesn't destroy itself, and you get to wipe out all cards the opponent controls. Due to this reason, you have effectively a board wipe that does not sacrifice a card. Whereas previously, if you did this with Citadel, you would target your own Brew Blues as long as it was pointed to RB, and because it cannot be destroyed by battle card effects, Citadel's effect will still Raigeki all their monsters, but your Brew Blues gets to stick around. For Pop Bunker, that's the exact same case with Stage Lightning. This lets you play. This also is pretty good because it means you don't lose a body on the field, especially in scenarios where you already triggered Funk Duck's effect early in the game. You now no longer have to do that. That's the reason why, even if Pile Bunker might seem like a win more card, or it's just very, very situational in terms of how to set up its condition, it is unironically actually a very decent going second card in the context, or at least as a crackback type card. Because oftentimes on the follow-up, you want to go into this card and make Brew Blues at max 4 summons. Then you just go ahead and attack, and you just wipe out all their cards on their field, and you just swing for lethal. And you can do that pretty consistently too. And keep in mind, you have Shepherd's Crook Rotation as part of your end board, so it recycles back next phase, which makes Pile Bunker effectively the best target for next phase in the grind game, because you just keep killing it off. You then go ahead and do Shepherd's Crook, you divide the stuff back, you bring back Cannon, and then Cannon can add this back, or if you want to, you can bring back Shepherd's Crook, anything like that. So that's a unique interaction here. Another one that's pretty neat, however, is Clockwork Knight with the K9 cards. Because as I said beforehand, as long as Clockwork Knight's on the field, every monster on the field becomes a machine. This is quite important, because if you activate Stage Lightning first, because you have to, if you have Clockwork Knight to go with any K9s, you could turn any of them into machines, which means you can immediately go straight into RB setup from that position. So not only is it a floodgate that can cripple certain strategies, and not only can it make your guys really big and make them hard to out in battle and let you out things in battle, and it can search a extender, it can search a follow-up, or it can search an Omnigate. It also turns any spare non-machines into pretty much machine-type monsters that you can help them go into RB setup. That's why I think Clockwork Knight is very powerful in this version of the deck. I think it's probably the best build of RB that can take advantage of multiple Clockwork Knight. However, I think in every other version of Clockwork Knight, I think you only play 1 or 2 copies of this card. Pretty much at very max. So that's effectively the deck profile. It's been pretty solid in testing so far, but there's some pretty big weaknesses of the deck. I'll go over some of the combos in that, and I'll explain some of the weaknesses the deck still has, including some pretty big choke points. Okay. Let me hold on. Is this the one? No, that's the 15. Let me double check here. No, that's not it. I think this is... Okay. So, what I want to go over most specific much here... Now, as you see here, I have a lot of RB combos here, so it's pretty freaking crazy, actually. It's kind of crazy. But let's go over some of the combos here, though. So, the first one I'm going to do here is I want to showcase a couple of combos that plays through Imperm and Veiler. Now, I wanted to do a slash, but this is technically Imperm and or Veiler. Now, the main combo that most of these will share in common, you'll see here, it's Joker plus any level 5 machine. And the reason why this is worth mentioning is because, depending on what your anticipating is in the opponent's hand, you want to try to make your board as resilient to hand trap as possible, which is what I'm trying to do with this build, with the K9 engine, because it helps you dig. It helps you dig through cards, but you can also play through hand traps fair. So most of the combos will involve Joker plus any level 5 machine. But let's talk about the ratios, right? You play 3 Joker already. You play 3 for Case for K9, which can add this card. You have Noroi, which can summon this card. And if you have the room for K9 counts, you can actually run 3 of it to add this card to your hand. So that's so if we take those, you have like 12 ways to get the Joker. And for the level 5 machine, you have multiple ways. You have Foolish Burgos to dump Clockwork Knight, which can then add Noroi. You have Funk Dog, which can add Rocket himself, and you have finish that. You have effectively around 11 ways to get the Vulcan Rocket, and if we count the Roy as part of the level thing, you also have that. You have 11 ways to get to that. So realistically, you have like so many ways to get to the setup. It's not even that hard to get to the setup to begin with. But let me show you what Joko plus any level 5 machine can do through certain hand traps. So for this one, we're gonna say the opponent has an Imperm or a Veiler. We're going to do Imperm for this case, though, because it's probably the best non-engine hand trap that doesn't walk into a Nazuna. So now, one thing people may wonder is, what happens if they Imperm this? The thing is, if they Imperm this, you just go into RB Link 2. You literally just go straight into RB Link 2, and that's really all you have to do. You just go into RB Link 2, you add Funk Dock, and then you add Stage Lane. You can just do setup in that position. Now, what I'm going to show you here is, how do we play around Imperm Veiler? This is how we do it. So we know also Noroi summon the 3, and Noroi will summon out, you summon Lupus specifically here. Why? Because, as we know, Lupus, if it exceeds material, the XYZ monster gains the effect that the opponent cannot target us with card effects. Now, for this one, there's a reason why we need a level 5 machine to go with Droko. Because we want to keep these two on the field specifically. Even though Noroi did summon Lupus, keep in mind Noroi's drawback of extra deck lock to K9 is only while you control that monster that Noroi summoned. So if you XYZ summon Lupus into a K9 rank 5, you're no longer under the lock, so now you could go into RB. But most importantly, Ripper now has Lupus, and we're not going to trigger Ripper's Effect to Search, because then our board becomes easy to break. So as a result, we want to keep this on the field. We want to save the Search effect for later. Now we have 2 machines. And now your opponent imperms this. And I will mention one thing about the RB deck in general, or just the RB archetype in general. Vulcan Booster is one of your best cards in the archetype. This card is legitimately, and I'm not going to joke to you all when I say this, unless you build the RB deck in a way that you could play around this weakness, Vulcan Booster is actually a huge choke point in RB. Because by imperming this card, they can no longer add the RB spell. And because it's negated, you cannot gain access to the second effect unless you make a second copy of Vulcan Booster. But because we have the Joko plus any level 5 machine combo, we actually have an alternative route. Because now here's where things get very different. Because now you can do Lantern effect. Lantern then adds Extreme Force. Then you're going to go ahead and add Riverstorm into your hand. Get Regulus, so now you have your Omni Gate set up. You're then going to make Shepherd's Crook, which then adds the Counter Trap. Then Regulus, we're just going to summon this out. Now, so here's the end board you make, pretty much just based around, and keep in mind, this Imperm was only in here so we can replicate it in the combo testing thing here. So ignore this card. But you have 2 more other cards, so you have 3 cards in your opening hand. Why this hand is pretty important. Now, the one drawback is you no longer have you don't have access to Triple Good's second effect because you only have 1 RB target in there. It doesn't say up to 3, which is very important. But you do have next phase in rotation, so now you can sacrifice Crook to negate a monster effect. You have Regulus as negate, so this is summon number 2. You have this as negation number 3, and then you have Release Force, which is interaction number 4, and then interaction number 5 comes from Werewolf. So as a result of it, you have access to effectively 5 interruptions if you get hit by Imperm on Vulcan Booster. Completely. And like I said beforehand, we have Lupus underneath it so they cannot target it. Now, that's not too bad, all things considered. 5 interactions under that, and you still have 2 more cards in your hand, which could be extended or non-engine. That's not too bad, all things considered. Alright. So now I'll showcase the second combo here. Now, this one admittedly is a pretty low ceiling combo, but you still are able to play through an Impermanent Veiler here. Now, this is worth noting, however, that... And again, we're doing the same thing. Now here, you actually could dump an RB name, and there's a reason why you do this. Because now you gotta do Clockwork Knight to bring back Scrapper Cycler. Send that to grave. You gotta add Jet Singer to your hand. This will then add Wishman to your hand. And let's say, once again, they do this effect. Well, now you do... So, if they do that, you just go into Brew Blues now. You do Brew Blues. You go into Stage Landing then activates, summons out Cannon, and Cannon's effect again. This time we're going to add back Driller, because now we don't have access to Operation Task, which is the main unfortunate drawback. We don't have access to one of our best follow-up cards, but we can compensate for this. Because now, we pay 1,200 to launch we're now forcing to summon a monster out. Funk Duck will now trigger, which then summons out this card, and then this card will then send Drill Cutter to the grave. Then this will trigger, which adds that back, summons out Shepherd's Crook. Now, that's pretty much any RB machine monster, or pretty much just any machine extender, preferably an RB monster, and plus Scrapper Cycler. And like I said before, while your opponent can hit Scrapper Cycler with Imperm, that's actually good for you, because that means your Vulcan booster has a higher chance to resolve, which is why, as I stated, if you play against RB and you have Imperm or Veiler, save it for Vulcan booster specifically, because it forces me to require other cards in hand to keep playing, or if I don't have them, I'm likely going to have my turn end right there. And that's why I do think that while this deck can play through hand traps better, it still technically has a weakness to hand traps if you don't use them correctly. But the main thing here is now, we have monster control, we have monster negate, we have monster removal, we have spell trap negate. We still have 4 pieces of interaction at this point. And if we really want to, we can then drop Cannon, and then Cannon will just put back a Vulcan booster for follow-up, so we can just set it up. Now, admittedly, again, this is not like a super strong, super high ceiling end board, but off of being hit by an Emperor Veiler, you're running essentially like you have like 4 interactions, and you still have 3 cards in your opening hand, so realistically, you actually will still be able to play very likely and still end up on a decent end board. Plus, you play a decent amount of non-engine, so you're likely going to have non-engine in your hand anyway to back up this board. Alright, so let's go with the same combo, but now we have 2 hand traps we want to play around. We want to beat Imperm, and we want to play around the Nibiru. And again, it's the same concept. Joker plus any level 5 machine. Nibs is here. Well, that's good, because now we activate Ripper's effect. Now, the only way they can realistically stop this combo is they need another Imperm Veil to combo with, so they need like 3 hand traps to stop this line. But this one line alone beats 2 hand traps, and we get insane combo lines. And here's the cool part, because they use Nib, we can now do Lupus effect. Because now we can add RB K9, which will then add back Azuna as a part of the follow-up. But now here's where it gets different, because now we're going to drop Azuna as a part of a combo, go into this, to add Turbo Booster as part of the follow-up, then we make another Ripper. And why that's important is now that we have another Ripper, we can use one Ripper as a Link material for later if needed. Now you make the second one. You then summon that out, and now, boom. Now we get to set up. Now we know they have a nib, so now we're going to play around the Nibiru on the next following turns. So now here's our new end board. We have effectively the following cards. We have Ripper Hand Engraver Negation. However, do keep in mind, depending on what's in their hand, if you want to play more generic, what you can instead do is you can summon Jack, so if they active monster effect in hand or grave, you could pop something, or you could do Valon as a Book of Moon effect. Depends on the matchup you want to play, but Ripper's usually preferred, because at least if it sticks around on the board, you can get some follow-up. So we have effectively Mind Control effect, we have Spell Negate, we have Monster Negate, so that's 3. You still got this as 4, you still got this as 5. And this recurs resources back. Now, playing through 2 hand traps specifically, Nibiru and Veiler / Imperm, we have 5 interactions. We still have another card in our opening hand potentially. So if we take a look at that, we had 4, we have Nib, we still have one more card to go with this Nibiru. The only drawback is, as I said beforehand, we don't have a way to get access to Clockwork Knight anymore. Probably there was a way to do it, I just didn't realize it back then. But that's not too bad. Getting out 5 interactions, playing through 2 hand traps is actually pretty solid. That's actually pretty nice. Okay, so now that we have that done, here are a few matches I want to showcase here. So here's a few matches I wanted to showcase here. I had in the competitive server on it. I originally did casual server for a long time, but I decided to competitive server because if I want to test this against decks, decently playable decks that play a lot of non-engine, I think this is probably the best way to do it. So for the first match here, we're playing against Exosister. They're playing the new Spirit Monster that's coming out Doom Dimensions that our Atomic can add. And our opening hand is okay. We have RB K9, so we have a combo starter. We have Turbo Booster to combo with Nowori, so we can at least get out 2 machines. We have Nibiru, we have Regulus, we have Clockwork Knight in our opening hand. So yep, and this is the new Spirit Monster that was added to, that comes out in Dimensions. So if it's normal summoned, if it's normal summoned, it lets you add any level 4 light or dark monster with 800 attack or defense. This is very good in the context of Exosister because one of their best monsters has exactly those stat lines. So Marfa has 800 defense, so it fits the conditions, and which does mean our Tama is effectively a 1-card starter in Exosister. They're going to do the Quick Play spell, which then allows them to add the Continuous spell card. Now, he does declare Nibiru the Primal Being, which is a bit annoying because unfortunately, when I was playing against this matchup, I missed that line of text, unfortunately, so I didn't realize he activated it. Now, here's the weird part. You would probably think this guy would actually play around this Nibiru knowing I had in my hand. But here's like the really weird part. So we did draw Foolish Barragoods, which is actually a very good draw. We're going to activate RB K9 to force out. We're going to use it to force that out, which is actually pretty fine. And it's Yugioh, which is actually a pretty good option, but realistically this doesn't really help us too much. Our opponent's going to go ahead and summon out the card. We're going to go ahead and summon out add Nowori to our deck. Since the card got moved from the graveyard, all their effects now trigger, so they can immediately XYZ summon. Now, unfortunately, because of some of the effects here, so here are the effects they locked us out. So for one, we cannot special monsters from the graveyard this turn, so part of our combos get shut off. And neither of us can activate card effects in the graveyard this turn, but we already got what we needed, so we don't have to worry about that drawback. And there was this one that would have made us negate that targets effect monster opponent controls, but it doesn't matter, because we're just going to wipe out their whole entire board anyway, so it doesn't realistically matter at that point. Now, we're going to go ahead and summon the Wide Dark Field, which will summon Lupus out. We're going to go to Jolkos, because we want to play around Imperm, because the set card is Imperm, so I guess there's a way to play around it. And if we just attack it for lethal here. Alright, next one up, we're playing against Sky Striker. This is kind of a slightly hard matchup for us, but because now we can look at the opponent's hand, we can actually know what they're playing, and just adjust our boards accordingly. Our hand here, however, is incredibly good. We have We have Noroi Starter, we have Fung Dog, we have Cutter, we have an Imperm, and we have a Jet Synchron as discard for a later combo. So, we're going to go ahead and activate this effect to add Joker Time back to our hand. Now, we're going to add Funk Dog. We're going to add Stage Line as a power setup. Now we're going to use the effect of Noroi. We're going to look at the opponent's hand to see what they got. We see in their hand, they have an Upstart, they have Talent, they have a Drop, and they have a Field Spell. And they also have a copy of State. And we have a copy of Sky Striker Ace. Now, why this is pretty important is since we now know what they're playing, we're going to adjust our main lineup. We're going to add Operation Test. After that, Stage Line, we're going to summon out Cannon. We're going to do the effect of Cannon, and we're going to immediately go ahead and force them to summon Ray. Now, this is important because, yes, he can go into Link Monster, but putting the Monster Zone is very important for us because, one, if they go into the Link Monster, we could simply, at that point, like, just go straight into Shepherd's Crook effect and literally just reviving our interaction at any point during the combo line. We're going to do this effect. Since we now know they're playing Sky Strikers, we're going to send Driller to grave. Now, we already have Cutter next, so we're just going to get Driller into rotation as a part of the name. And again, like we mentioned before, we're going to go and do this effect. We'll summon this back out. Brutalist will then trigger, which will then add discard to hand. We are going to go ahead and activate the effect of Cutter. We do want to get rid of the spell on the field because, like I said beforehand, Ray is very dangerous to keep on the field because she can go into any of the Link 1s, which can really backfire on us if we don't play around it, so we have to get rid of it. But we know what's the rest of the cards in their open hand. So now we're going to summon out Lantern. Lantern is then going to add Case. Case will then activate Case to add a copy of Azuna, so now we have an interaction piece for next turn. If needed, we're going to Clockwork Knight, sending that to the grave. We're going to go ahead and send Clockwork Knight to the graveyard. We're going to sacrifice Joko to add back drill cards to get us back notification. We're going to go ahead and summon out that, pitch a Clockwork Knight. And this effect will then dump Jet Synchron. Then we can go into Shepherd's Crook, which then sets the counter trap. Bring this effect, we're going to go and equip that to it. And we have Omnigate, we have Trap, we have Monster Removal, 2 forms of monsters, so that's like 1, 2, 3, 4. We have this is 5. And if we have this is 6, which then goes to 7 interaction pieces, if necessary, if they activate a hand. And we have Operation Test Follow-Up, and we have Stage Line as Follow-Up. So in this sequence line, and if Shepherd's Crook survives, that's another form of follow-up. So in a sense, we have at least 2 to 3 forms of follow-up. He does Upstart first. We're just going to go and let him resolve it. I'm going to save my negations for other effects. We're going to go ahead and activate this effect. It may seem very weird to do this, but I want to do that because, one, unless this is a normal spell, I don't want it to potentially hit a Ray, which is the main one I'm trying to avoid. He does Upstart again. He's going to do Horror Drones. This time, we're going to go ahead and straight up just immediately resolve this card. And unfortunately, that was the other reason why I took the gamble of bringing this onto the field and let him draw. Because while there was a chance, yes, he would have drawn a monster effect. The main thing, however, worth pointing out, though, is that the risk was worth it because we know that Sky Strikers, they only have 4 main deck monsters in Ray and Rose, and they have to dig very deep for them. And 90% of their deck is literally just spells, so this is very important. And we're going to also trigger, not only going to trigger the Foolish Bear effect, we're also going to trigger the effect to steal the Link token. We're going to use the Imperm to hit the Kagari, so now he no longer has access to his card. We're going to trigger Stage Landing to protect our Driller so he cannot kill in battle. We'll activate this effect to make it kill off. The opponent tries to use Ray, but we do have next phase to immediately destroy the token we stole and just negate that effect. And now, we have practically near infinite follow-up now, so now we can just go and do Stage Landing, get Lambda Cannon back, Cannon then adds back Cutter, which then summons that out, and we add Wild Bunker into the board, add Operation Test and just revive that back, and yep, we just kill him on the crackback, and we just attack twice with Brute Blues for lethal, over 10,000 damage. Holy moly, this is a big freaking card. Alright. This one is up against Satellite Knights. I'm playing against the guy using the new Satellite Knight support that was revealed for Terminal World. Which also, fun fact, in Terminal 3, they made a change to new support. Normally in Terminal Worlds 1 and 2 sets, every past dual terminal archetype got 4 new cards, and the 5th card was an Altard. That's been changed to Terminal 3. There's no Altards anymore for cards, but now in exchange for it, every archetype that gets new support now gets 5 new cards instead of 4. However, you may notice something pretty interesting about this version is that they're playing the Dodo engine, which I think is probably maybe the correct way to play Satellites with their new cards. Because realistically, Satellites did not get their resolved issue that there were no Summon Lights, so adding the Dodo engine I think is a pretty good option. Our hand's pretty good, however. We are, however, going second though, but our hand is pretty fantastic. We can actually break the board going second. Unfortunately, this does mean that we have to let them do their whole combo because we just don't really have to interact with them at this point. We have an Ash, which would have been very good, but sad that's not the case. I've rolled shotguns the pop effect, which is pretty bizarre to me. I don't know why you would pop that, but I guess whatever. Unfortunately, this showcases a pretty big freaking problem. This guy here is that he shotgunned this effect way too early, so we pretty much are just gonna hard punch him for this. We make Regulus to pretty much contest any sort of negation if necessary. Now, unfortunately, the one drawback here is because of this card, is that neither of us can send any cards from the grave. Any card that returns from the grave with the hand is bashed instead. Now, this is pretty important. Also, the other effect to detach are, if a Dark Monster triggers this effect, you can detach the material to negate stagnation destroy. A bit annoying, but not the end of the world. We're going to activate Operation Test to add back this. Now, I go and activate the effect here to attempt to use it. He does negate it, but unfortunately because he destroyed it, that means Storm gets the trigger, which immediately gives us the option to send back to the field. Now we're going to go ahead and attack. We're going to activate the effect, and this is the interaction I mentioned here. Because it does not say an if you do like the other ones do, we can use Stage Lightning to protect itself, so then we could just board nuke. And because of that factor, he stays on the field, and then we can just do attack twice for lethal. Alright, so next one up is my second game against the same guy. His hand is pretty fantastic. He's going first, and his hand is really great. He has technically a starter, and he has Dodo as another starter, so he actually has a pretty good hand. But we did, however, this time around, not only open stars our hand, we also opened Ghost Ogre Azuna, so now we have a way to interact with him. He does Ashley Azuna, which is honestly makes a lot of sense. It's going to lead to Lupus and any interaction, so this makes perfect sense to Ashley right here. We're going to save this Ogre, however. This is why I really like Ogre a lot right now, because there are some cards you really don't want them to stick on the field. So he makes this thing too. I'm just going to save my Ghost Ogre mainly for the other Rank 4 that we know they run. Yep, and there's the card. We're going to just go and allow him to just do these effects. He's going to pop our Azuna, which leaves our board empty, which is actually kind of fine with me. And he activates that effect, it was talking about the staff. This is the monster we over this away, so we can not have to deal with it. So now all we have to do is just deal with this card. Our hand is really, we drew Vulcan Rocket, which is pretty insane, because that means we can play through practically any freaking hand trap now, which is very, very powerful. Well, we're going to add Noroi from our deck to hand. We're going to add Lantern, because we have Scrapper Cycle, so we're actually going to use Scrapper Cycle instead. Our opponent is going to go ahead and trigger this effect here to revive back our cards back onto the field. We're going to go ahead and activate this effect to get Force Release. This will then trigger. We're going to go ahead and detach one material from this card so we can go to Werewolf and pop that guy off the field. We're going to go ahead and activate the effect of Zuna, activate that effect. So now Lupus that effect triggers. We're going to activate Clockwork Knight. So now we can make our guys really, really freaking damage. and just go ahead and attack for as much damage as humanly possible. We'll reset Force Liberator onto the field. We'll go ahead and make Ripper, and I chose not to detach. I probably should have done that just in case for follow-up, but I forgot to detach, but realistically it doesn't matter at the end because I know what's in their head, or at least I pretty much guessed what was in their head. Then we're gonna go ahead and summon out Josh. We're gonna pop that four body, the one that actually does something with its level. We're gonna pop their last guy and just, yeah, that's pretty much game right there. Alright, next game is going to be up against Brandon. Also a 50 plus combo. This hand is really freaking insane, by the way. This is an absolutely insane hand. We're going to go ahead and, what we did the line I showcased before is we're going to do the anti-nib Valor line. So we're going to go ahead and do the set the dump case to at least know what's in the hand. But now that we know, since we now know they don't have a single hand trap, we can actually now detach safely and just get a few days of rotation. We're going to summon a Lambda Cannon, and since we know one of the most important things in the hand is Elbaz, we're going to force him to summon into the field. We're going to go and do this effect, summon Cutter, we're going to go and Roy. This effect triggers, we already have activated the case, so we're just going to add Force Release instead. We're going to activate this effect, add that back, and we're just going to add this again. Now we're going to dump Scrap Recycler to get this back. We're going to do this effect. Sacrifice that, get set up to rotation. So now we have the monster negate right now, the Raigeki effect. We're going to set the counter trap up, activate this, set that up. Now we can set up the Clockwork Knight, so now we can just flood at the opponent, and our monsters are super big now. So, yep. And we know what's in their hand. We know they have a call by, which might help, but we have Regulus to contest it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Alright, next one up. We're playing against Cyber Dragon K9. Our hand's pretty decent. Ours is solid. We have double flaw, which is pretty freaking powerful into this deck. He does trigger this. He does summon out Azuna, which it does unfortunately we will get punished for using one, but we are going to get a couple draws. Plus, with Paradox Smasher now banned, we don't actually have to worry about that card nearly as often. But there's another rank 5 that's kind of scares me, but luckily this guy's not playing as far as I'm aware of. Yeah, I did Clockwork Knight. It's very machine. Now, here's a pretty cool part I didn't realize I could do. So, with this card, you could add any level 5 machine on the board. Which is actually pretty crazy. I did not think about using Clockwork Genius as a part of the combo set. IP and then make this. Now let's look at the opponent's board here. They have Ripper for hand negation. They have this to go into SP sets 2. That's like 3 pieces of interaction. They have this for 4 and Ripper can rip, which is 5. And this card's interesting because if there's a card, with no cards, you special summon this from this hand for free. But it can only be summoned once per turn this way, and you can negate any card effects active in the same column. And if its monster zone is destroyed, you place it in the pinch zone. And its pendulum effect is negate any card effects activated in this card's column. Now, why that's pretty interesting, so why this effect is quite interesting, is mainly because this makes it so if I do any link in this zone, Vulcan Booster is not going to trigger. I won't be able to do it. So I have to beat a Ghost Bell, I have to beat Liberator, and I have to beat Ripper, IP double SP, and this card. Luckily, what we did draw actually does help us do this option. So, I'm going to do Full Spirit of Blitz first to get rid of a card. We'll get rid of the Noroi because, unfortunately, the opponent does have only one card, and Noroi's kind of dead if they have only one card, so we're just going to get rid of this for now. We'll go on Clockwork Knight, and from this point on, we're just going to summon all of our RB monsters first, and then we're going to commit our normal. We'll then use that effect. That forces out Ghost Spell interaction number 1. SP gets rid of that, which is fine with me. Again, we're not going to be able to trigger the effect, but we are going to be able to set up the card in the field. Now, here was probably the misplay this guy made. He probably, in my opinion, should have hit Operation Test. And why that's important is because I think instead of hitting that, he should have hit Operation Test. Because this guy already covers the links in this zone anyway. And unfortunately, he misplayed really, really hard. And he's going to get pretty hard punished for it, though, as you'll see here. now he goes in and does that, but unfortunate for him, he completely fucked himself over because now I can actually punish, because now I can hard punish him for this. He goes in and activates the effect. Nice that. He did have to do this for dumping a card, but at this point, the damage has already been done anyway. But it's fine, the damage has already been done anyway. We're at a second stage landing. Summon that back out. This will then get summoned healed. We'll bring back Ruthless. This effect will then activate, which adds Cutter. Then special Cutter out. Clockwork effect, dump that. Get access to stage landing. Bring this back. Get that onto rotation. Summon out this. Get another Cutter in the rotation. Set up Shepherd's Crook. Shepherd's Crook then sets up the trap. And now, we just go in and attack him. We're going to activate the effect. Stage landing will bounce away so that our guy stays on the field. And we just attack for lethal. Yeah, unfortunately, because that guy misplayed a couple times, he kind of got hard punished for it. But we were able to break through that board unironically pretty decently despite that. Alright, next one is going to be an Instant Doomsday. I'm going to be honest with you people, I have no idea how the hell this deck plays. But we open our main combo, Joker puts in level 5, and you know what that means, people? We get to play through almost any hand trap in the game. And we look at the hand, we now know what they have in their hand, so now we can just adjust our board accordingly. We're forced to summon that monster on the field because that's an extender, so we're just going to get rid of this. Now, since we already have Operation Test, I'm going to add Funk Duck as follow-up for next turn. Clockwork Knight that triggers, which then adds Clockwork Knight. Dump a Clockwork Knight, dumping Citadel. So now we have the Raigeki effect in rotation, so this out. Alright, we have a full up, but we also will simply have Operation Test and Funk Duck as follow-up. He doesn't call by the Lupus, which actually does make a lot of sense here. He probably has effects that want to resolve, so he wants to get rid of the Lupus, which I think makes perfect sense to do. We're going to summon out the cannon, because we're going to use that as fodder for the counter trap. We're going to do this. We're going to go and activate Force Release and just instantly take out that rebellion, because we don't want that thing to stick on the field. We're going to activate this effect. We're going to go ahead and rip that card right out of his opening hand. He does activate that effect. Unfortunately, because he is in the dash step, we don't get the trigger Funk Duck's effect. But realistically, it doesn't really matter because he already committed to his normal, and he does not have a level 5 to use Joker with, so yep, that's kind of realistically it. Alright. Now for the last two games, I'm going to showcase Automata Yugioh with the Zodiac engine. This will be the last two games versus this deck. And we opened Joker plus Azuna, and we have Turbo Booster, and we have two non-engine in our opening hand. We're going first. We're going to use this to dump a copy of Joker. We're not going to dump Lupus, because realistically we need Lupus in rotation anyway. Summon this out. We're going to go ahead and send that to the way to see their hand. We do see a Ghost Bell. So all we now have to do at this point is pretty much just do this option. We're going to go straight into this card. We have Lantern to effectively play through the Ghost Bell. So he does do that, but since we know he has a bell because of Noroi, we actually use it right here because that's his only non-engine interaction. So now we do this. You see he has a sword in his hand, so we're actually going to force him to summon it. And since the effect's negated, sword does not trigger, which doesn't give them access to EXT, which is very important because EXT can just break this board apart. We're going to go ahead and dump this to the grave. Get this into rotation. We're going to go ahead and activate the effect of Lantern. Next, we're going to go ahead and add release restraint. Then we're going to go ahead and trigger this effect. We'll dump the Ghost Order because it's not very good in this matchup anyway. We're going to activate the effects. Second by spare in case something this out. Go into Shepherd's Crook. Get the counter trips out. And we now have Operation Test's follow-up. So now we're in a good position. They have Bonfire, we need a headache, so we're just going to negate that right off the gates to prevent access to EXT. We'll summon out the Blade, which will then dump a copy of this. They activate that, we do force release, and we're just going to immediately pop it on the field. They normal summon a monster. We're going to do Chain Link 2 Werewolf to get rid of that last guy in their hand. We're going to do Chain Link 3 Blade to steal. We're going to Chain Link 4 Imperm to target the Zodiac Raptor and prevent it from fully burying a card. Now, they have no more plays left, so they pretty much have to end their turn. And now, follow-up is really freaking strong. We now have very good follow-up. So that, we'll show this, and we just come here. Alright, now here is the second game here. Now, this hand we have here is pretty dang strong. Now, unfortunately for him, we actually ash him right here. That he is playing to summon that back. I decided to just get instantly to get that effect because realistically I don't want to deal with an untargetable one, so we're just gonna do this option. We do have a spare ash. We're gonna get rid of the cannon because it is a dead hand. Our opponent is gonna destroy it, which makes sense, but unfortunately we have access to Jets to compensate that discard fodder. Now here was probably the big one. If that last card was Infirm, it was not the end of the world because I could just swing both of this into his Trident and just out it. The effect now triggers, which then summons out Blade. Blade then gets to dump another card. And then that one triggers, which brings down Lambda. We'll go ahead and activate the effect. Stage Light, we'll go ahead and activate that stage Light to get back out Cutter, so now we can contest any follow-up. And we just do this interaction. So it doesn't get destroyed, and we just kill him on the crackback. Yep, so the deck is actually pretty decent going second. However, I want to showcase, unfortunately, one of the things. Now, as I stated originally beforehand, one big choke point about the deck is negating Vulcan boost with either Imperm or Veiler. Now, this can be compensated with some of the combos I showcased before, and in the previous part, you have ways to play around some of those hand traps. However, I want to showcase the one non-engine that is actually the biggest problem for the deck. That, unfortunately, I think this is the one card that's going to really prevent this deck from being any higher than Rogue tier, and that is Fullow specifically. I want to showcase how big of a problem this card is for the deck. So he activates it here, and unfortunately for me, this is kind of bad because I have to play very hardly around this card. And unfortunately, now, this board, admittedly, it's not really super bad. We have Spell Negator. We have the Spell Negator. We can then float into Lambda, which then dumps another name, and then we can use Crook to recycle it back. And we have this. And we have two non-engines. So this actually isn't even a bad board, all things considered. Unfortunately, this is kind of showcases why Fullow is a big problem for this deck. Even though you may have lines that can play around it as best as possible, as you can tell by the opponent's hand, they drew effective around 3 cards. First one from this card, second one from Funk Dock, and the third one from this. They drew at least around 3 cards. And this is kind of bad because even though we technically did use Clockwork Knight, the problem is we can't go Clockwork Knight to do that because then we just lose access to all of our follow-up. So that's that. Unfortunately, we have to kill this monster on the field. And unfortunately, we had to do it because we lose Shepherd's Crook, and we don't have a way to get it back from the graveyard. This is one of those scenarios where I do think Last Stand would have been good, because at least with Last Stand, if we lose this, we could at least use that to, like, summon, like, any RB, and we could probably keep playing the game if necessary. But unfortunately, that's just kind of a pretty big problem, is that you just don't have a way to beat that card. So, yeah. So that's effectively most of the matches we showcased. It showcases mainly the strengths of the build, how we can play through boards going second, and showcasing some of the weaknesses and some of the combos and boards. Now, Do I think this build of RB is the best way to play RB going forward? I personally think so. While pure build doesn't have to run nearly as many bricks, the ceiling of that build, even though it's pretty decent, is still on the low side compared to like every other deck in the format. Whereas in this version of RB, in RB K9, your ceiling is not only relatively good ceiling, you get better follow up because K9s can search follow up alongside your RBs. So as a result of it, this deck effectively is the best at playing through hand traps and is the best at breaking apart boards. Now, I will mention one thing about Noroi, is because its normal summon effect is tied to its normal summon and is not conditioned on special summon. This makes Noroi effectively a really bad going second card. Like, yes, it's a machine, yes, it gets a free body, but since you're locked to the K9, while you control that monster, you have to sacrifice it or you must go into Ripper, and that leaves the weakness of the K9 engine is slightly weak going second. Now, this is technically compensated by the fact that RBs are actually decent going second, because you have Cutter to contest Imperm, you have Palmbugger if you get the setup, you immediately board wipe, threaten it, and you have Vulcan Rocket that can help you tear apart boards going second. And as a result of it, this deck is unironically, if your hand is unless your hand is mid or very bad, this deck can actually play going second decently well. And as well as its going first option is very, very strong. And even though we're playing a 60 card version, we actually have room to play some decent amount of non-engine. Like, we have triple nib, we have Azuna, which technically counts as non-engine. So that's 3, you have 9, 12, 15, 18 non-engine. You have 18 non-engine cards, and you can take out some of these cards to fit in some more if you like. Now, as I said beforehand, in the K9 version of RB, you have to go over 40 cards. I think around 50 is probably more correct, but I think 60 definitely works. I just think 50 cards is more correct in terms of the main deck. Now, for the people that may be wondering is, if you don't want to run Scrap Cycler, like say you want to play a one-card starter in this build that doesn't consume your normal summon, you do have a few options in that. So, for example, if you can somehow if you could fit in like a single copy of Kagari here, for example, if you could fit in a single copy of Kagari, you could technically run 3 of this card. Actually, hold on. Let's use the Altar because Altar is really sick looking. You pick 1 Torrents, and if you want to add an extra piece of direction, you can do Winter Anchors 1. But mainly, it's mainly these 5 in particular. And honestly, fitting this in may not be too hard. If, for example, you're not playing Werewolf, you could just take that out for Kagari instead. But as you can tell in this build has very lax room for is very tight in the extra deck, so it's very hard to fit this in. But another option you can actually run that actually is a good one you could play is you can run the Speedroid engine, which is, in other words, is literally just 3 Terratop. We'll take this out here to showcase this. It's just 3 Terratop. I think this is a pretty good engine worth considering. It's 4 cards. Tongadora, yes, technically is a brick, but your Brubalus is a wind machine, which does fulfill the condition of Taki Tomborg, so it's actually not even a bad idea worth considering. Yeah, because it gives you access to 2 machine bodies for free. Now, in terms of other normal summons, if you don't like Scrap Slug or Jet Synchron, there actually is a couple decent normal summons. So, I want to mention this card in particular is Division. So, this card is you can tribute all face-up divisions you control. It says, notice it has the comma thing or column on it. It does not tribute itself for cost. It's special enough to twice the number of machine tokens. Things on damage. This doesn't really matter anyway. The main thing about this card is this card plays around Azuna. It plays around Azuna. It plays around some other hand traps better. And it's a machine, and it's also a Clockwork Knife fusion material for it, which is actually pretty good. So that's one option you can do. Let's go and take these out. So you can run this card if you want to. Another good normal summon you can also run is you could also run Christian Smyger. And while yes, inclusion is limited to 1 copy, this does give the option to run Sulfador, which can dump that, and this gives you access to level 5 machines. level 5, so you have a way to bridge into K9, and you can go into River Storm, which then goes into Scrap Recycler, or any machine, or any generic Earth machine. So Turbo Boosting, you can go into RB. You have a bunch of options. The only reason why I don't recommend the Crusher engine is not only because of the fact that inclusions at 1, it's because at that point, why don't you just play K9 Crusher at that point? Because K9 Crusher at least is super competent, and it doesn't require the RBs for it to work. Both two engines just work perfectly with each other. Now, and there is a bunch of other good normals, but these are like the best alternate engines you can run for RB in general if you want to play it. Now, there is also one other cool card I do want to mention here, though. I'm trying to remember what was the name of that card. What was the name of the card again? I'm trying to like remember what it was. Oh yeah. This is an actually like monster you can actually run in the deck, because it actually fulfills the condition of stage length, is you can play Dawn Dragster. Which is actually funny, because since Kennen is a level 6 and you have Jet Synchron, you could actually, in theory actually, if I want to get rid of a card, let's get rid of this. You could actually fit in this card and have a spell Trap Negator. So now you get a second one, so that way if your Cunning gets outed, you now have an additional one that can do it. So in a sense, this can give you multiple forms of negations. Now overall, I've been liking the new updated version. Again, I likely might go back to 50. I just need to figure out the ratios for it. So if anybody wants to give me suggestions of what to take out or anything like that, go and let me know. But what I will mention, however, and this is a pretty big one worth noting, I want to ask everyone this personal question here. Is if you have tested the second wave of RB support, you've read it, why do you think a lot of people are calling the second wave bad? Now, admittedly, the second wave of RB support, admittedly, is not really super powerful in a sense. In comparison to Mitsurugi's second wave, which was custom freaking made strong cards, RB second wave is kind of lackluster in comparison to it. Last thing is super mid. Palm Bugger is very niche, but it can sometimes come up. Cannon and Blade are really good cards with good effects that are very relevant in every combo in the deck, but the fact that they're just hard bricks that cannot summon themselves hand makes them awful to draw. Which is ideally something you never want to do. I know we have Vulcan Booster, but you'd rather just summon from the graveyard 99% of the time anyway. The other one too. The counter trap is also very odd considering its condition is super situational just for a monster negate. But in most of your combos, it's not that hard to set up anyway. So admittedly, the second wave has a lot of flaws with some of their cards. But the second wave is really not as bad as people think it really is. Because if you remember in my first video, I mentioned that while it did not fix two of their big weaknesses, which is the lack of a link coin and the lack of a good normal summon in Archetype, what it did improve, heavily fix, was three big huge main weaknesses the deck had. One was the lack of a good continuous spell, which we have that in Operation Test, which not only gives the deck much needed recursion follow-up, it gives you an effect that triggers Funk Duck's second effect. It's a good continuous spell to dump with Clockwork Knight, which then adds the spell, and then you could do Barricade to dump it, then dump another card, add Regulus as a part of your end board, or if you already have Regulus, you can add an 80 normal machine as a follow-up card, and which then lets you go into Shepherd's Crook, which is sets of the counter trap, etc., etc. What I'm trying to say here, people, is while the other second one too is the ceiling is a lot better. The deck now can set up 5 to 7, or maybe potentially 5 at worst to like up to 8 interactions at best, and it's all layered. And you can set up your sequence to play around what's in their hand, and you'll know exactly what they have in their hand. Like, it's actually pretty crazy, isn't it? And also, most importantly, your recursion follow-up's better, because since Barricade adds back Operation Test, your follow-up's a lot better, because now it's follow-up, and you still have a few cards in hand, and because we're playing the Cannon engine, you can set up Azuna as follow-up. The deck actually has very good follow-up now. I think that two of its biggest weaknesses, like low ceiling and the lack of continuous spell and a good continuous spell, and a better recursion follow-up, is I think those have been relatively fixed in the second wave. And in my opinion, I think those were the bigger priority. Because I'll be honest with you, people, I do not think this deck had any issue with consistency. I don't think it never did. I just think that the lack of recursion follow-up, low ceiling, and lack of a good continuous spell is what really hurts the deck. And again, I want to point out to the people that claim this archetype support is garbage, when they don't seem to realize that having a monster that looks at your opponent's hand and hand rips, even if you might make them summon a monster, that's pretty big for the deck, because it helps you play through hand trips better. And on top of that, you don't even have to summon a monster, it's actually optional. So if they have a monster that is not threatening on the normal summon, but you know they have it, you can just choose not to summon the monster. You can choose not to. It's as simple as that. And also, having more easy access to Clockwork Knight is very important, because it means depending on the matchup, like say Yummy, you can pretty much really cripple their end board by just activating a single Clockwork Knight. And on top of all that, because now you have easy access to this, you can now bridge into Barricade easier and add back Operation Test or Funk Dock for follow-up. And even more on top of the cherry on top of the cake, we now have easier access to Regulus as an Omnigate. So, this goes back to my main point. This deck's follow-up is significantly better now. Same with the recursion. The endboard piece and ceiling is better. You have a good continuous spell for Clockwork Knight. Right, like I can really just go on. Other than like a couple cards that might have some pretty big significant weaknesses or flaws, this second wave is really not as bad as people really think it is. Like, I don't understand why people think the second wave is terrible. I really just don't understand why. Why? Which is why I'm asking you people who have played this archetype before, maybe play the second wave, or if you read it, why exactly do you think the second wave is bad? I would like to know the answer, people. I would really love to know. Because I might make a third part of this VOD that might go over some my personal replies to it. Although may not likely not happen, but that's just worth noting. Now, there are, however, a couple weaknesses about the deck. Firstly, the lack of link order and lack of an in-themed starter that is a normal sign, admittedly, is pretty bad. Stage Line and Funk Duck is the only one-card stars the in archetype has if we count Terraform, that's 7. That's kind of bad. Admittedly, that is pretty bad. And why that's bad is because, yes, you get 5 interactions, but you miss out on other important interaction pieces like the K9 bridges, etc. Secondly, there are some hand trips that are still very bad for this deck to deal with. As I mentioned, Fulos is very annoying for the deck. You summon from the deck and the extra deck a lot in this version, so Fulo is a big problem for you. Thirdly, the brew can still be problematic. Yes, you have multiple hand knowledge. Yes, you have a ton of lines that can play through it consistently. But you're not going to always open those combos consistently. Not every game. And if your opponent has the proper hand shot to combo with, it does not really matter at that point anyway. You straight up just cannot freaking beat him. The brew can be really crippling. But you do have a lot of lines that can play through it. Alongside Ash can do it. Impermavelo on Vulcan Booster is so harsh if you do not have the extenders to keep playing. In my opinion, I think Impermavelo plus Nib is probably the best dual hand trap combo into RB. It just instantly ends their turn and gives them almost no way to keep playing. But again, you could easily play around it in the K9 version because, as I said, an Illuify Machine plus Joko instantly beats both Nibiru and Imperm/Vela. You instantly beat all of them. Yeah. Now, that's effectively it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I know I'm a broken record and I like to yap a lot. But if anybody would like to explain to me why they think the second wave is pretty terrible, go and let me know down below. And I might make a third part as is responses to them. Yeah, so, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.